Angine de Poitrine!
Of course, we all understand that Kun and Klek were born looking this way. But their look has visibly evolved over the years. So let's break it down and see what's changed. This is a video from Angine de Poitrine's first ever show at Café de Clocher in early 2020. Most of you will already know the story of the origins of the band and how they came up with the look as a cover for performing at the same venue twice within 2 weeks. Apparently the idea for the papier-mâché masks came from what they used to do for gigs earlier for their other band. They used to make some giant papier-mâché structures to be destroyed in the pit. So when they needed costumes, that's where they ended up. They've said their inspiration for the noses was the proboscis monkey. That tracks. I've only managed to find 2 videos and 3 photos from this era, but let's try to unpack what we're seeing here. Let's start with Kun. This first mask is only covering the upper half of the face, and the beard is strapped on seemingly behind the ears like a face mask. The hat is flat and the dots on it are huge. There seem to be less of a standard dot size, since the dots on the face look tiny and the dots on the jumpsuit are also huge. The jumpsuit looks to be the same one he used later, because there are zippers in the same places and the dots look messy, faded and smudged like they were done in chalk. So it may be that they washed them off and painted the smaller ones on this same jumpsuit later. The guitar here is probably the first microtonal guitar that Klek made for Kun. They said in the Guardian interview that Kun painted some dots on the guitar neck while under the influence, I say it euphemistically. And that's where the thing with the dots started. And now let's have a look at Klek's first iteration. Klek's look hasn't gone over quite as much of a dramatic transformation as Kun's, but his initial form was still different in a few ways before it settled into the style we know today. The main differences are the eyes and what he's wearing. I've only found this one photo that shows his first face in detail. His eyes are big globs with a tiny pupil in the middle. They look grey in this picture, but they might have been white. It's hard to tell. He's kind of just wearing a sheet, again with the larger dots. He's worn this later as well on at least one occasion, maybe as a backup outfit, but by the time they started making official videos in 2023, they settled on a uniform size for the dots, and these big ones were not seen again. Then we'll have to do a time jump to 2023 and the official Angine de Poitrine teaser video, because I haven't seen any footage of them from the in-between era. Kun's look has been drastically redesigned with a new full face, and the hat has found its final shape. I feel like the shape of the hat in the first iteration is what threw me off the most. It makes a big difference. This is almost a fully formed classic Kun look that would only undergo 2 major changes before getting fully updated later. The teaser video from 2023 is the only one where Kun's neck and ears are visible and painted white with dots. It's pretty easy to see why this didn't work so well, because it does leave him looking a bit too exposed, and the dots on the neck seemed to get really messy and didn't look great because of that. Soon after that, some kind of black balaclava was added underneath that made the face stand out nicely. Sometimes in the start it seemed to have dots on it too, but you can't really tell, and they gave up on trying to do that for the final look. I think it's the type of balaclava that has holes for the eyes and mouth, because obviously he needs to be able to see, and you can see a little mouth peeking out sometimes from certain angles. I expect that helps with breathing and singing under there. The mask and hat are both still made of paper, or papier-mâché in the case of the mask. The nose was initially hollow with a hole in the end, exposing the paper inside. Another quick way to tell if you're looking at Kun's old mask from before the end of 2025 or the new one he wears now is that the old version has the face going over the edge of the hat, whereas the new hat goes on top of the forehead, which makes more sense to me, and also avoids this papery wrinkling issue that the old look had at the front. At first, the eye holes were just big, open and downturned like this. You can kind of see there's some kind of white layer inside as well that doesn't seem like paint on the skin. It seems that the eye holes in the balaclava may have had paint around them as well, to give the illusion of the whites of the eyes being there. Either way, the eyes were much more exposed before the addition of the dollar signs. You could see right inside. Previously, his goatee just had 1 thick braid, now there's 3. A quirk of this old version of the beard is that it was often bent to the side where the guitar got in the way, but this issue seems to have been mostly corrected with the new beard. It doesn't seem to be quite as rigid anymore. The jumpsuit had a bunch of zippers, kind of like this tactical jumpsuit I found, but not quite. Some of the zippers seem purely decorative. It's quite obviously hand-painted. The sleeves and pant legs were longer than on the jumpsuit he wears now. He would sometimes cuff the pants, and it seems like the pants being slightly overlong may have been a bit of an inconvenience while using the loafer with his feet. He now has his signature white double-neck microtonal bass guitar built by luthier Raphaël Le Breton, adorned in polka dots. You can find plenty of other videos by music people who have analyzed this instrument, and there are a few interviews with its creator. I'm not going into that much detail about it because I'm just talking about the look here. There have been a few visible changes to the guitar, and you can see photos of what it looked like in progress in those articles. From what I understand, this custom instrument was built by joining existing pieces of a bass and guitar together. This part of the bass was clearly not the right kind of style for the look that they were going for, so that part has seemingly been just taped over. You can see tape on the sides of the necks here in the teaser video, marking the frets so Kun could see them better. He doesn't have great visibility under the mask, so large bright red and green fret markers were added later to make the frets easier to distinguish with his limited field of vision. They seem to be UV painted as well, so you can see them in the dark better. I love how these dials are little dies. Another tiny detail that's changed after the music videos is that there's now a pink X right there on the guitar. I've seen this screenshot of luthier Raphael explaining on Facebook that it was drawn on there by some kid and Kern just left it there as a little souvenir. KEXP's still wearing a formless sheet, but this one has smaller polka dots on it. Funnily enough, the neckline is less neat than in the old costume, and the previous version seemed to have the sides sewn together, whereas this just looks like it was thrown together haphazardly. It seems very impractical for playing the drums because there's not much mobility here, and you can even see a very scandalous sliver of human-toned thigh in this shot. The glittery gold triangle looks stiff and glued on, so it's most likely made of cardboard. You can sometimes see the edges are not even attached and it's trying to escape. Not made to last. The eyes here are a very obvious change from before, but they're still not the pyramid shape he ended up with. These eyes are gold and glittery, but they're spirals protruding out. They're quite small, so it's not a very readable design from far away. The head looks almost the same as before, but some improvements have been made to the nose and lips, which look a bit more put together now, but not perfectly smooth, because that's clearly not the look we're going for here. KEXP was originally also going barefoot with leg paint. Again, I can see how this would be incredibly impractical for drumming, not to mention how he's got so much of his legs exposed, and he's got a lot of leg hair. I don't know if he wore shoes while performing live originally, but I would assume he may have needed to. But for the music videos, he didn't have shoes on. The drums were covered with a polka-dotted blanket from the start, which is both a way to achieve the polka-dotted look without customizing the drums themselves, and it gives the drums a more muted sound that can be a deliberate choice. I don't know how much of the decision to use the blanket has to do with how they wanted the drums to sound, because KEXP will now play both with the blanket and without it. So he has the custom painted drums now, but still chooses the blanket sometimes. It makes sense that carrying just the blanket around from country to country would be easier than carrying the full drum kit, so it may be a matter of convenience that there may be some borrowed drums under there sometimes, but I don't know, this is just speculation. There was a tiny pyramid on top of the hi-hat, which I find very cute, and I'm sad it seems to be gone these days. Also, in case someone still hasn't noticed, the actual eyes are here. I don't know how you would have come this far and not seen that yet, but I gotta mention that, just in case. Now KEXP's eyes have been changed into these small golden pyramids, and his costume is improved a bit with a belt and what seems to be just ties around the elbows holding the sleeves in place. He's still barefoot in the music videos. He eventually settled on wearing these polka-dotted sneakers and tights. Kun then went through one more addition to his costume before the full revamp, which is the dollar signs on top of the eyes. The idea they've alluded to with those is that they are now consumer products. And that's pretty much all they've said about that in this interview where they talked with their own voices. The original portraits they used for the teaser were altered later to match their updated look. Kun's portrait that was used for the Volume 1 album cover obviously added color, the chin is shorter, the goatee has been added in, and the hair is a little longer. He also now has the dollar sign eyes in the portrait that appears in the Sherpa music video, despite how he didn't have them yet at the time of filming the video. KEXP's portrait didn't require as many edits, just the added color and the updated eyes. The papier-mâché masks were very fragile and deteriorated over time. This is the roughest I've seen them look, with Kun's face clearly having been glued together aggressively and the rim of the hat trying to crackle and crumble away. KEXP's nose also had many cracks in it. Apparently the masks survived a car crash at some point, which would definitely explain why they got so beat up, but that would have happened regardless, given all the abuse they suffered from all the performing and other shenanigans. KEXP said his old head was really nasty by the end, all filled with snot. That made me realize he truly can't do anything in there if his nose starts running. It's all just going to get in there and get absorbed into the cardboard. Yuck. I would not be able to deal with that. Even getting an itch on my face would drive me crazy. Now, I have a couple of pictures of what the heads looked like when not attached. Don't worry, they just shed their old skin sometimes, like reptiles. But if you're squeamish about that, look away now. Okay, you can open your eyes, the danger is gone. And it's time to say bye-bye to the old snotty masks and move on to the modern era. This is where they went to perform in France and needed some less fragile, more portable new outfits, and hence we got the more current look around the end of 2025, November-December times. The overall new look is more neat and purposeful. Like I mentioned before, the brim of Kunst's hat now sits on top of the face, and the hat is made out of fabric. The face is also made out of something more durable than paper mache, but we don't really know what exactly. Everything still has a purposeful lumpy paint texture on top to keep that homemade aesthetic. We don't know who made the new masks, and whoever it is seems to wish to remain anonymous. The new face has more neutral features with smaller, less melancholy eyes and a really tiny mouth with barely noticeable gold lips. The new nose is very boingable, giving Kun plenty of funny nose tricks to do to entertain the crowd. There's no longer a big gap between the edge of the face and where the hair starts. The new jumpsuit is more practical with shorter sleeves that have buttons on them that Kun often likes to keep open on the sides. And hobbit-length pant legs, so nothing gets in the way of his pedaling and knob twisting with those grippers. KEXP look underwent the same kind of streamlining with the upgrade. The head is nicer, a little wider, but basically just an improved execution of the established concept. His eyes are less protruding now, which makes him look just a subtle bit more cute and friendly in my opinion. His tunic is now more of an actually structured clothing item, rather than just straight up fabric that's been shaped into something wearable. It's still loose and simple, but it has actual kind of batwing sleeves now instead of being held together with what looked like hair ties before. And he's wearing a golden glittery belt to tie it all together. The tunic is also way shorter now, making his legwork just a slight bit more visible while drumming. There's also now a little extra triangle under the neckline in the back, which is a nice little touch. In April of this year, 2026, Angine de Poitrine debuted the new light-up versions of their costumes at Club Soda. The triangle in Kunst's hat, as well as KEXP pyramid hat and eyes, are now made out of metallic gold material that allows light to pass through from the inside. The lights are controlled remotely by Tech de Poitrine, who is responsible for lighting for their shows, or whoever else they have as a lighting tech. So, now that we've gone over the evolutionary phases of the outfits, let's talk about the overall style of Angine de Poitrine in a bit more detail. There's something about the very loud, contrasting patterns of tiny polka dots all over everything that is such a great concept. And gold as the accent color is really nice and really stands out. Pyramids and triangles feature heavily in the band's aesthetic. This is probably at least in part due to the Ha-Ha Pyramid Monument in Saguenay, where the guys are from. There's a lot of discussion about what the pyramids and triangles mean and if there are ominous ties to this or that conspiracy embedded in it, as well as accusations of copying other artists like Daft Punk, who have also used the symbol similarly. The band hasn't really commented about what the pyramid means specifically to my knowledge, and they have stated that they mostly want to leave all the lore up to the fans to interpret. They're not that interested in establishing canon explanations to stuff. There are only a few song titles that we know the meaning of, so a lot of things about the band kind of need to be taken with an attitude of, huh, okay, neat, rather than trying to know what exactly everything is supposed to mean. Of course, the large crowds all doing a triangle symbol with their hands and chanting together is a very cult-like thing, and ADP play around with the cult themes intentionally. But truly, it is not that serious. This is a very goofy band where the point is to have fun with it. Sure, it's a bit of a cult, but... I hope you enjoyed this little dive into the history of Fashion de Poitrine. I've also made a series of compilation videos about cute and funny moments with Angine de Poitrine, so subscribe and stick around for more Angine content if you're into that. I've also got videos coming up about how I made custom action figures of Kun and KEXP, so look forward to that in the near future. Though, do be warned, I may also make videos about something other than French-Canadian aliens someday. But it is not this day, or anytime soon. This is my life now, and this is what my gaming channel has become. Also, big thank you to everyone who's joined me here on this nail adventure. I can't believe there are already so many eyes on my stuff. I had 14 subscribers here before I made my first Angine de Poitrine video, so I am very grateful, and I'm glad you're having fun with my very silly videos. Thank you. Bye!